49er faithful, fans of the 49er station, thank you for logging in again. It's Thomas, Ryan, and Mark. We're here to talk to you about what's been going on in the 49er world. If you have not already, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as we get started, just a quick shout out to the new Hall of Fame inductee. This was overdue. Patrick Willis. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, brother. We were all huge fans of yours while we were in college. Getting to see you at training camp. I mean, he was a monster on the field. His career was cut a little short, but it's really more about his impact. And if you haven't listened to his story, and I think there's a couple documentaries on it, his journey to the NFL is incredible. He's a great human being and well deserving of the Hall of Fame.
How's it going, guys? Good to see you again, Tommy. Welcome back, Ryan. I'm glad you're feeling better. And it was really cool to see Patrick Willis get inducted. It's kind of the first 49er that I've seen get inducted that I actually grew up watching. You know, we know of all the Niner Hall of Famers they have, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, the list goes on, but we never really grew up watching those guys. Steve Young, the tail end of his career, T.O., but he's kind of our generation first Niner Hall of Famer, and it's really cool to see him get in and the stories that he told in his speech and everything he said. And he said, you know, it's not about the length of the career, because that's kind of the thing that's hated on about him is he played a short time in the league for a Hall of Famer, but he made a huge impact. And so to see him get inducted, that was really cool. And like you said, his story is crazy. I think he didn't have running water until he was like 12. If you haven't read up or watched anything about his story, highly recommend seeing it. And I can't think of a better 49er to represent in the Hall of Fame. So that's really cool to see. Excited to talk about all the crazy news that's been going on this week with the 49ers.
Yeah, what's up, fellas? Thanks for having me back. You guys held it down last week. You guys did good. Yeah, still kind of getting over the sickness. We're about 90% over it, but happy to talk some 49er football. So we can just get into it. I mean, there's so many headlines running around right now with 49er land. We can get into Brandon Aiyuk. I'm sure he'll be a big topic of conversation today, but a big thing that's also affecting a big player is Christian McCaffrey. Apparently, he has a calf sprain as of today, and he won't be participating in the rest of preseason, and he'll be out of practice for a couple of weeks. What are our thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, this is kind of a running theme, right? We have hamstring and calf injuries already popping up, and this happens when players start to go to full go, right? It's just kind of that shock and awe on their muscles and their bodies, and you're going to get injuries, but it does feel like we're getting a little bit more than we should for the calf and hamstring area. Christian McCaffrey going down is arguably almost as bad as not having Trent Williams on the team. However, we talked about this last week, Mark, with Jordan Mason getting the Bobby Turner, 2 thumbs up and approval, and him making his study habits, his game film habits, his preparation, all up to Bobby Turner's level. And now he's got the stamp of approval. We got guys like Cody Schrader as a rookie who are going to push Jordan Mason to be even better. One thing that the Niners did this week also to enhance the running back room was sign former 49er Matt Breida. And I do think with Elijah Mitchell, that room is still pretty solid. So, yeah, it sucks. It's unfortunate. We don't want to see CMC have the Madden curse, knock on wood, but this is a terrible start, in my opinion, for our running back health, because CMC is a person that gets, let's say, 25 rushing attempts and 10 to 15 targets a game. So that's, 35 to 40 plays offensively are going to CMC, and without him, that changes some of the game planning.
Yeah, it's one of those injuries like, okay, here we go. I hope it's not anything serious. Elijah Mitchell also missed practice today too. So now, it went from being a deep running back room to 2 of our really number 1 and 2. I know we said Jordan Mason and Cody Schrader are probably going to be the 2 and 3, but as of right now, Elijah Mitchell's the number 2, and both of them did not practice today. It sounds like McCaffrey's going to be out probably until the regular season. And so now you have to bring in guys to get those reps, right? Because it's a position where you need to rotate. And in the preseason, someone has to take the carries. And you can't just have Jordan Mason carrying the load the whole game because you really want to use him in the season. So it'll be interesting to see like kind of what develops here over the next few weeks. But I think it gives the guys we were talking about last week, Thomas, an opportunity to prove themselves. Jordan Mason and Cody Schrader, they're now going to be carrying the bulk of the load with the ones and the twos probably. And I would imagine they're going to get equal reps. If Cody Schrader can prove that he belongs, they'll probably get close to equal reps. What was interesting to me, I don't know if you heard the story this week, Jordan Mason said he bought a jugs machine, and he would go out and catch, I think, 500 balls a day or every other day with his dad on the jugs machine, just really firing it in there because he said, I need to be able to match the versatility that McCaffrey brings if I want to get reps on the offense. So you can see the development that he's bringing to the table. I'm pretty sure he was a college quarterback too, right? Navy. I think he wasn't even a running back. So this is a continual development for him. And now he gets the opportunity with McCaffrey and Mitchell being out to really show his worth. And then someone's got to sub in with him, and now you got Schrader showing up, getting the opportunity to prove that he can do everything in the run game and also the pass game and pass protection. So I'm really excited to see what the running back room looks like. I'm hoping that the calf strain can recover. Burrow had the calf strain last year, and he was able to come back, and then he had the injury. So I'm hoping it's not anything serious with McCaffrey and he can come back. But it does, again, open the door for these younger guys to get an opportunity to display their skills and maybe earn some more playing time during the season.
I thought the Matt Breida signing was pretty interesting today because like what you guys were talking about last week, Elijah Mitchell being hurt gives Corey Schrader and Jordan Mason a lot of good reps for that number 2 spot and the number 3 spot. However, throwing Matt Breida into the mix, Breida has to get his reps in. Fortunately, he knows the offense. However, my mind also was wondering if this was a potential signal that we could move a Elijah Mitchell potentially, or maybe even a Jordan Mason if there's a lot of interest, or if they're adding him because we do need the depth for the season. Any thoughts about that?
I think Breida is Garindo's replacement to get those camp carries. He's a guy that knows the system. He's also a veteran that is kind of bounced around to where I think if it does end up being Mitchell gets traded and then our 3 running backs are McCaffrey, Mason, and Schrader, I think Breida is the type of veteran now at this point of his career where he can be put on the practice squad and no other teams will kind of take him off of there. So he brings that instant knowledge of the playbook. I think he still has some explosion. He doesn't have the elusiveness and the explosion that he used to have prior to all the injuries. He knows the system. He's a veteran guy, and he's one of those guys that you can put on the practice squad, much like a Chris Conley, right, veteran receiver that's on the practice squad. You're not obviously if he's playing, it's not good, but if he is playing, he's going to execute like he did in the playoffs last year. So just a veteran guy that can come in and help kind of mentor the young guys in the offense and also just be there as an insurance plan. Because we all know he has his injury issues too, but to have him in the room helps the young guys.
I think Breida on our team is an above average running back, right, at the bare minimum, mainly because he does know the offense. But he is kind of still a versatile player. I mean, he can catch the ball, he can run the ball. Yeah, he's had injury history. I mean, he got beat out by Elijah Mitchell. So I do think that those two players, though, are kind of similar if you think about it. And not having Elijah Mitchell 100% is going to, again, open the door for players like Cody Schrader and JP Mason. Now, we play our first preseason game against the Titans on Saturday. That's where you're going to see the first actual game action, right? So they're going to be playing with most of the first O-line, I think, for the first quarter or so, right? I'm trying to remember preseason, but usually the starters are out after the first quarter, maybe the first half in the first game.
I think it's first drive in the first game.
Yeah, first drive, right? You're not risking injury for anyone. So we're going to see second and third string O-line against some starting defense and second string defense for the opposing team. This week is the Titans. After this week, we have joint practices with the Saints. So through all of this, we're going to find out if any of these running backs can hold their own. Because it's one thing to do it against your team. It's another thing to do it against another. And so Jordan Mason, Cody Schrader, Matt Breida are probably going to get the bulk of the carrying. And CMC wasn't ever going to get much work anyways in preseason. So you do have to take this with a grain of salt and look at it like, now we're just confirming that CMC isn't playing. Before, we were thinking probably he would practice and then get maybe one series. But the workload he's going to get in the regular season, this could be a blessing in disguise that he is not going to get any of those reps because he needs to save himself for a 500 touch year again. So JP Mason, Cody Schrader, Matt Breida, we'll find out who's going to come out on top in preseason, but it'll be fun to watch him on Saturday. I think we play Saturday at 4. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, that sounds right. Another crazy headline to see, our first-round draft pick, wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, leaving the second half of practice, apparently tweaking his shoulder again, similar to what was going on with OTAs with him. Just super disappointing, especially amongst all of this Brandon Aiyuk news, because he is supposed to be, the future of our wide receiving corp, and kind of a bad time to go down with injury.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I feel like, the news coming out where the Niners are pretty much, they have a few trade options out there for Aiyuk. I think that comes from the confidence of what they saw from the young guys in mini camp and now early on in training camp. They're looking at them saying, okay, we can, obviously they're not going to produce like Aiyuk, but Shanahan's thinking, I can get Ricky Pearsall 65 catches this year designed in this offense, especially with the weapons around him. He's not going to be covered by the number one cornerback, probably not even covered by the number 2, or, he's going to get good looks with all the weapons around him. So they're looking at, okay, we can actually trade Aiyuk and we might not drop off as much as we thought we would have. And then for this injury to come up, he was injured in a rookie mini camp. He's injured in regular mini camp. He's injured in early on in training camp, comes back injured again. It's one of those things. It's like, is this guy going to be one of those guys that just can't see the field? Obviously, Jalen Hurd was not a first-round pick, but Niner fans were super excited, and the guy was just constantly injured. And the old saying in football is the best ability is availability. And if you're not available, you can't impact the offense. You can't help the team. And so now as the Niners, you're like, okay, well, 24 hours ago we were thinking, yeah, we can get rid of Aiyuk, get some valuable things coming back for the future, and kind of plug Pearsall in, get him some reps. And with him being hurt, it might kind of make you second guess what you need to get back if you are going to trade Aiyuk. So the Pearsall injury is very concerning to me just because of the number of injuries he's had. And he's only been a 49er for like less than 6 months. So that's concerning to me.
Yeah, we're talking core injury in rookie minicamp in the spring, hamstring injury to start off training camp, now a shoulder injury. I mean, this guy's all over the place. I mean, it could be worse. It could be a reoccurring high ankle sprain, something that's going to be an 8 to 9 week injury. Could be a reoccurring hamstring, but it's not. But you're right, Mark. I mean, I'm starting to, like I said, I think in our first podcast back, talked about him already reminding me of a guy named Christian Watson. High hopes for the Packers, always injured, never plays. And unfortunately, he's trending that direction. Now, I could be completely wrong, right? We do have a history of 49ers like Frank Gore being able to recover from multiple ACL surgeries and put up numbers for years and years and build a Hall of Fame career. But this isn't a good start, and the timing isn't opportune for us because Brandon Aiyuk is on the verge of being traded. It's not going to be to the Pats. It's going to be the Steelers. It's going to be the Browns. It might be a wild card team. So far, it's not the Commanders. But I do think that it's not ideal to have your first-round draft pick wide receiver that is supposed to replace a lot of these reps and targets be out. Now, what does that mean for the rest of the receiver room? Probably Ronnie Bell makes the team. Probably Chris Conley makes the team now. It's possible at this point that he starts on the PUP list, right? That clears the roster space. So Danny Gray, Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley might have a shot at making the roster, but they're definitely going to have to show up in preseason, similar to the running back room, right? These reps need to be handled by someone. They're going to play 3-4 quarters. So we'll see who can do the most. And another thing to think about is I actually do think that the trade with Aiyuk, people are looking at Pearsall as a direct replacement, similar to how we looked at Kinlaw as a replacement for DeForest Buckner. It's not that case. I actually think what's going on in the background is the confidence in Brock Purdy. I think Kyle Shanahan goes, Brock could make any of these receivers a Pro Bowl player. Our offense could make any of these receivers a Pro Bowl player. I could be wrong, but I think that's kind of the theme that's happening in the background is we're only comfortable with trading Aiyuk because of what's going on in the receiver room with the rookies and Brock Purdy's development as a quarterback in year 3. So is it good? No. I want Pearsall to be getting those reps and playing in preseason so we can see what we got. But same thing with McCaffrey. Him sitting out for a bit during preseason, these are reps that don't matter. As long as he's healthy week 1, that's all I care about.
Yeah, I guess the silver lining, like you said, Tommy, Ronnie Bell, from what it sounds like to camp reports, he's been taking advantage of all of his opportunity. He's been crushing it every day, it seemed like. And we had Jacob Counting come back today, and he's put on a pretty good performance. So hopefully he stays healthy and we can keep the wide receiver room bolstered a little bit.
Yeah, Thomas, what was interesting is you said, like, part of it might be the confidence in Brock Purdy. And, for a guy that's in line to get paid next year, can you imagine if Aiyuk gets traded, Pearsall's dealing with injuries throughout the year, and the guy still comes out and balls out, leads them to the playoffs, deep into the playoffs, similar numbers to last year. The guy's going to go from making maybe 55 to 60 million a year to maybe he needs 65, 70 million a year. And, I heard an interesting thing today on a Haberman's podcast. He was saying it was a national reporter, someone that has a lot of like credibility in the league on ESPN or something like that. He said technically Brock Purdy is eligible to sign a contract before the playoffs because the rule is rookies can't sign a contract until after the end of the regular season of their 3rd year. So technically he could say, hey, you know what? I want a contract before the first game of the playoffs, just in case I get hurt. It secures me on this team. I've gotten hurt in the playoffs again for you guys before. And then if you're Brock Purdy and you lead the team to a 1 or 2 seed without Aiyuk and Pearsall in and out of the lineup, I mean, you're talking the guy really, really has some leverage there. The type of guy that Purdy is, he's not going to hold out, but it just proves the value of Brock Purdy if he can come out and perform the way he did. But also on the other end, if he doesn't have those 2 guys out there, he doesn't have a great year that could affect the way he gets paid. So what would be your guys' confidence in Purdy this year if he wasn't able to have Aiyuk and then maybe an inconsistent Pearsall? So now you're looking at Debo, Jennings, and Ronnie Bell being your Kittle. Yeah. So like what would be your expectations of Purdy if Ayuk's not there and then you have an in and out Pearsall?
How's McCaffrey looking? Is he healthy in this situation?
Well, if you don't have Aiyuk, Pearsall, or McCaffrey, now the Niners went from one of the most explosive offenses to maybe like offense. 2019 offense where you're searching, right? You're making a trade at the deadline. So that, and then again, that gets we can bring this up now. That's the importance of the Brandon Aiyuk trade. If Brandon Aiyuk's not on this team, you need an impact player that's going to help you get a Super Bowl. And if you're already having trouble with the receiver room at this point staying healthy, that's where, you know what? If you're the Niners, like, you got to go to Cleveland and we got to get Amari Cooper. I know he's a 1-year guy and he's only going to be on the team 1 year because of his contract, but you need another receiver in that room that can get open against man coverage, because if not, the offense is going to look different. So let's talk about that. Like, let's bringing up the receiver room and how, like, what do you want back if you're going to get rid of Aiyuk?
I think we absolutely. All right. Well, unfortunately, so originally we were, at least before the pod, I don't know about you guys, I was hoping that we were going to trade with the Pats because of the draft pick potential, right? They're likely to finish in the bottom 5 this year. So that means if they were to give us their 2nd round pick, we're looking at pick 33 through 38, right? Our 2nd round pick is going to be in the 60s. So that would be huge for us. That'll be our first pick of the draft. We have a 1st round pick in the 30s, ideally, if we finish as we're projected. But the Pats were only going to give us Kendrick Bourne back. Kendrick Bourne, is probably not as good as Jawan Jennings, and he doesn't beat man coverage like you were talking about, Mark. Now we shift over to Cleveland. The draft picks they give us aren't going to be as enticing, but you can get a player like Amari Cooper. I still believe in Amari Cooper. He showed last year that number one corners can't shut him down in a big game. He could take over, and having him and Debo means that one of them is getting the number two corner. And I do think that a lot of the time it could end up being Debo getting the number two, and that being Debo having a better season. Amari Cooper's probably going to draw the number one corner, but I think that I think he's only 30, he's not old. Amari Cooper would have more of an impact than when we traded for Emmanuel Sanders. And that's really all we would need to get over that hump to the Super Bowl or through into playoffs. Let's just say into playoffs. And I would prefer that. Then we look at the Steelers, I think, is the next option. That's where Aiyuk is trying to go. I feel like they're likely to give us a lineman. Upside would be Hightower. Middle would be Daniels, the guard, or one of their rookie guard tackles. I can't remember their names off the top of my head.
I think they got the guys from North Dakota State that we talked. Yeah,
that were good. Yeah, they're good.
McCormick, I think, is one.
That would help us. Believe it or not, having that kind of security behind McKivitz and Trent Williams misses at least 2 or 3 games a year for whatever reason. That alone could make the difference in us getting over the hump too. So is it different? Yes, but I would prefer at this point the Amari Cooper trade idea. It doesn't feel like the Commanders are willing to part with Scary Terry, but if we did that, I would take that obviously over everyone. Even if it was Scary Terry in a third, I'm taking that immediately because he would be 100%. An impact player. He would be an impact player this season.
Yeah.
He would be better than Amari Cooper. But Amari Cooper, I think he's still got 2 to 3 years left. The only downside in this situation with Amari Cooper is I think his contract's up at the end of the year, might be up in 2 years. Not 100%, but again, we did the 1-year rental thing with Emmanuel Sanders that got us to the Super Bowl. Emmanuel Sanders gets hit by a Jimmy Garoppolo, we win that game. So, I don't know. At the end of the day, I still wanted Brandon Aiyuk to play out his 5th-year option. I'm a Niner fan. He's done a lot for our team. He's apparently a Niner fan. His family's a Niner fan. I have no idea what's going on and why he wants to leave, minus the fact that he probably discovered that he's never going to make more than $25-26 million for the Niners. And he knows that he could provide generational wealth on another team. And that's probably what it boils down to, right? He looks at that $5 or $6 million a year as the difference maker. And for him, it's more important than a chance at a Super Bowl. Because I think you go to any of those teams, maybe the Steelers have a chance at making it to the playoffs, but they have a tough division. And you're relying on Russell Wilson and Justin Fields in your quarterback room. The fact that he doesn't talk up Brock also really bothers me, and I think that might have been the deal breaker. I think him not supporting the team, him requesting a trade, all these shenanigans, whatever you want to call it, antics, I think that kind of made the Niners have a sour taste in their mouth, and they don't want to bring him back. Otherwise, I don't know what it is. It's definitely not his playing ability. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like we could be here all night, speculating all these different scenarios, but I do like the Amari Cooper Browns trade situation the best out of most of that I've heard. However, a big criticism of Amari Cooper that I've heard from 49er fans is that, one, they're not sure if he's a willing blocker like Aiyuk, and two, if he is willing to extend past a year, which like you were saying, Tommy, not the biggest deal. We've had experience with this with Emmanuel Sanders, but he is an older player, just like Emmanuel was. But I think the biggest thing for me would be the blocking. If we can still maintain that high level of blocking in our scheme, which we know is essential, then yeah, bring Amari Cooper over. We know he's a hard worker. He's kind of a more quiet guy compared to like an Emmanuel Sanders, because one of the cool things that Emmanuel did was like he really took like Debo and the young receivers under their wing and really was that vet. I'm not really sure if I see Amari doing that. He'll probably be more of like, hey, I'll lead more by my actions type of leader, which is still okay. But that's kind of the big skepticism right now. But I think at the end of the day, you still got to take him. He's a solid wide receiver, been a great wide receiver for how many years now. So if we can get that level of production, who's to say no to that?
To me, I would not. If we got Amari Cooper, which I agree, Ryan, I think that's out of all the scenarios I've heard. Obviously, we're not in the front office, so we're not hearing the different things that are coming back. But everything we've heard in the media, I think Amari Cooper and a second from Cleveland is the best option. And I'm not worried about him blocking because there's something to be said about a championship culture, right? Like the Patriot way for a long time. I mean, you can argue there's a Shanahan way, Niner way, John Lynch, whatever you want to call it. This team gets the most out of guys. And I have a hard time envisioning a professional like Amari Cooper who works hard. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's known for being one of the best route runners in the league, and you're not that if you don't work hard. There's no way he's going to come in around Jawan Jennings, Debo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and not block. Right? For him to come in, and if he were to come in and kind of ruin the culture of the Niners, that would affect his next contract. And he's at the point of his career, he's made his money. He's gotten paid. He was a first-round pick, got paid. Signed a second contract, got paid. And now he's at the point where he's never won, right? Like, when you get to 30 years old as a player, you saw it with Devontae Adams in the receiver documentary on Netflix, right? He doesn't care about anything except for winning. He needs a championship. He's been close. He's tasted it. And Amari Cooper's not going to vocalize it the way Devontae did, right? Like you said, he's very quiet, leads by action. And you don't need him to lead verbally because you have Debo. That's Debo's job. Even you could argue now Jawan Jennings is to the point where he can be that type of leader. So he just needs to come in and just execute and beat man coverage and run the right routes. And he will do that. I know he will run the right routes. And again, like I said, you're not going to come into the system around all these guys and not block. It's just the culture of what Shanahan has built. It's been built since 2017, 18 when they got here, and that's not going to change. So I think if he came in, he got around the guys, he would adopt that philosophy, especially knowing like this is going to be the best chance he's going to have in his career to win a championship. So again, like Thomas, like you said, I want Aiyuk on his team. That's my number one. If I could say my number one option, that's it. Aiyuk plays on this team, fifth-year option, figure it out next year in the offseason. Aiyuk gives us the best chance offensively to be explosive. If we're going to trade him, Amari Cooper is the guy, I think, because then he can make that impact. I think his numbers could be very equivalent to what Aiyuk has, and we don't drop off that much if he's on the offense compared to Brandon Aiyuk, in my opinion.
Big point with the blocking, and I think you're right. I mean, I do feel like any player, whether it's Amari Cooper or a different receiver or just any rookie even coming into the Niners, you understand the culture, right? Blocking gets me more yards. At the end of the day, a receiver that blocks is going to get more yards. So they're going to block. They're going to try. And you're right. It looks like his stats, I was just looking it up, over the last couple of years, he's 72 receptions last year, 78 this year, or the year before. 1250 last year, yards, 1160 the year before, 9 touchdowns the year before, 5 touchdowns last year. That's
Sounds
comparable.
Like
That's very comparable to Aiyuk. I think Aiyuk was 70-something receptions, 1350 yards last year, probably 7 or 8 touchdowns. So,
and they're both known as route runners, right? So like
exactly.
That's their key. Yeah.
So I do think that Amari Cooper could be a slot in replacement for Brandon Aiyuk. It is just unfortunate. Totally agree. Number one option would be keep Aiyuk on the 5th year. $14.67 million this year. I mean, I don't know what Amari Cooper would cost. And you're going to be looking at a 1-year rental.
His cap hit is only like $8 million, I think. It's because it's in the last year of his contract, so all his guaranteed money's gone.
That's a good point. We could save a little money there, but I don't know. We'll find out. Unfortunately, this will be something for the next pod. I don't think we're going to find out in the next 30, 40 minutes that Brandon Aiyuk was traded. At this point, it's 10 p.m. Pacific time. I do not think
Tuesday.
that. Yeah, on a Tuesday. I think
They're not
if
wheeling
we're,
and dealing at 1 a.m. East Coast. You mean they're not? They're probably asleep.
I think over in Cleveland, they're waiting till the next business day. That's all I have to say. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of unfortunate that we're even in this situation. It's kind of the last time we had a wide receiver pull this kind of shit was T.O. I mean, we were kids. We weren't even really that old. But I was looking at it, and that was the last time that we had kind of this diva behavior that Brandon Aiyuk and has been, behaving wise. But I feel like it's partially because of his agent. I think he's being pushed to kind of be this way. I don't think he's actually that kind of player because of how he is on the field. I could be completely wrong though. Maybe he just enjoys blocking. But usually wide receivers aren't that selfless. They don't block like Brandon Aiyuk does. So it made me feel that he would be willing to negotiate, and I was wrong. He's not. So he wants to go somewhere. Let's bring on Amari Cooper and a second round pick. We can have 2 second rounders next year in the 60s. Right? That wouldn't be that bad. This year that brought us Renardo Green. In the years past, it brought us players like Trey Sermon. So again,
Well,
I
you could
also
also use those. You could also use those two to trade up into the early second. So like, there's flexibility when you get those 2
you could
seconds.
use those two in our first to trade up and get a lineman.
Yeah, yeah. Trent Williams replacement, right? So there's a lot of things you can do with that capital.
I don't trust the Niners with the second and third round pick. We talked about this last week. So that's just a thought. I mean, we're thinking way in the future, but yeah, I mean, Amari Cooper would be great. Obviously, I think if we were talking about straight up trades, I'd go Scary Terry first, Devontae Adams second, and then Amari Cooper third. And only Scary Terry above Devontae because of his age.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the Washington Commanders are officially out of it or not, or even Cleveland. I think there's just so many things going on right now, but we'll probably hear so much more tomorrow about this. Completely new headlines.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I think we might be able to wrap it up here. For those of us that are still listening to the Niner Station, thanks again. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Once again, a shout out to Hall of Famer Patrick Willis. What a career. Just well deserved, finally getting inducted. And like Mark said, it's really cool to be able to see a player that we grew up watching get inducted and not have to just like look at highlights. This is someone that we remember watching. I think the three of us went to Candlestick and watched him in training camp, and he was a massive monster. We were just like, wow, that's Patrick Willis in person. I mean, he was bigger than everyone on the field playing middle linebacker. I mean, so. But thanks, guys, for listening. But with that, let's wrap it up. Bang, bang.
Niner gang.
Niner gang.